The homeless population in Canada could be 3 times higher than current estimates. The Lawson Health Research Institute in London, Ontario says the way homelessness is counted needs to be reevaluated. We are now joined live by Cheryl Forchuk, a nurse and assistant director at the Institute. Thank you for joining us on CB24 Live at Noon. So I'm curious,
Thank you.
what is currently flawed, or what needs to change in the way we collect this data about homelessness population?
Well, the current method really relies on people touching the homeless sector, but not everybody who is homeless touches that sector. So a lot of the data, for example, relies on shelter data, point-in-time counts, HIFIS, which is a kind of database that's used in the homeless sector. But it also relies on the larger urban centers, around 68, 70 communities that have the higher population. So the rural and remote areas are totally not included. People who don't touch the homeless sector are totally not counted. So one of the things we did was look at health data as an alternative, and that's where it would suggest that it could be as much as 3 times the rate. We currently have a study where we're going to every province and territory, interviewing people who provide services to get a sense from them what's missing. And as well, talking to people with the lived experience of homelessness. So we've talked to 200 people providing services, 400 people that experience homelessness in 28 communities across the country, every province and territory, large communities, small communities, just to get a sense of this.
And I can imagine, Cheryl, it's tough to gather a lot of the information because not everyone who's homeless is necessarily living on the street. Some people who are homeless might be just crashing on their friend's couch for extended periods of time. So I'm curious about the challenges of trying to gather all that data, because it's not just limited to people who are in the shelter system.
Yeah, the people in the shelter are easy to find. We went to some small communities that had no shelter, communities with 1, 2, 3,000 people, where it might be someone sleeping at the church or out in the woods, and quite often where we found was people in these situations. We consulted with the experts. If the people who were in the community providing services say, we know we're missing youth, for example, when we talk to homeless people, we'd say, where do we find the youth? And they often had very good advice for us to find these populations that could be more hidden. Youth, for example, often one youth will rent a 1-bedroom or bachelor apartment and 20 kids move in. So they're really hard to pick up through traditional methods.
Sure, we only got about 30 seconds left here, but for many people who are listening to the story, they're probably not surprised by this. Here in Toronto, I think a lot of people can notice the increase in homeless populations. We've got 10 cities and encampments located all across the city. What would you like to see be done, especially from a government level, to really combat this massive problem?
Well, 2 things. One, we're the only industrialized nation in the world that does not have responsibility for homelessness at the federal level. That was downloaded to the provinces a few decades ago. Ontario further downloaded it to the municipalities, which, when you consider that it's generally handled nationally, you can see how spotty that ends up with how policies are handled from community to community. So I think we need to get more involvement from the federal level. They do, just before the pandemic, have a new strategy that needs to be implemented, but it has to be implemented with more accurate numbers, or else it won't be funded at the appropriate level. And also, if we don't know who's homeless, we don't have the right kind of program. So I think we need to have better means of counting how many are homeless, and we have to have involvement from all levels of government.
Cheryl Forchuk, we appreciate your time. A very important discussion. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.